So I'm looking over the Kathmandu Valley now. I spent 8 years at Sekhar here. The time just goes. It's like everything is impermanent. We never recognize the fact until it's all gone. Everything has changed. So I should tell you the reason why Khenchen Thrangu Rinpoche decided to build our retreat center here on the side of the mountain near Bhaktapur, a place called Sudal in Nepal. It's because this is the place, this spot here where I'm sitting, this is the place where Milarepa spent many years meditating. At that time it was just forest and wilderness, a few scattered villages. I mean, even when I came here 8 years ago, the place was pretty quiet. It's developed a lot since then. You can see they're building new houses everywhere. But 1,000 years ago, you can just imagine what this place was like. Just forest, tigers and leopards, wild animals. And Milarepa meditated here without even the barest essentials for survival. No food or clothing, no shelter over his head. I mean, this place used to be a cave, but I suppose sometime in the last 1,000 years then, because of an earthquake or whatever, it all collapsed. Now there's a small temple here to Manjushri. I guess it's a Nawari temple. But for the Nepalis, everything's kind of mixed up, you know? Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, it's all kind of the same thing. They have faith in anyone who is a spiritual practitioner. They have faith in each and every religion. So anyway, about 1,000 years ago, Milarepa came out of the Himalayan mountains behind us. And he came down to this spot overlooking Bhaktapur. So at that time, the Kathmandu Valley was divided into 3 kingdoms or principalities. There was Kathmandu, Lalitpur and Bhaktapur. Here we are overlooking Bhaktapur. And it's a very lush area. The name Bhaktapur means fields of rice. So it's kind of the breadbasket of the area. And there was a very powerful king who lived down below. And Milarepa was here meditating on the mountain with no food or clothing. Now the king had heard that there was a yogi in the mountains. And of course the Nepalis have great respect for practitioners. So knowing that there was an adept, a special practitioner meditating on the mountainside, then he sent his envoy up to greet Milarepa with some gifts. One of them was this bolt of fine cotton. And so the envoy came up the mountainside, asked the people, is there a yogi up in these mountains somewhere? And they pointed him in the direction of Milarepa. And when the envoy found Milarepa, he thought that Milarepa was such a pathetic sight, emaciated, no clothing, sitting out in the open air with the rain and the sun beating down on him. He thought he was quite pathetic, a beggar, and wondered why the king would want to invite such a person to the royal court that was so full of splendor. And so when the envoy saw Milarepa, then he passed on the message. He said, Yogi, the king of Bhaktapur, His Great Royal Highness, has invited you to come to court and enjoy a lavish feast. Of course, the envoy had thought that Milarepa would jump at the chance, being out here on his own with the wild animals, no food to eat. But Milarepa just laughed. He said, King? What king? I'm the king around here. I'm a Dharma king. So I have the 7 royal attributes. So of course, the king's envoy thought Milarepa was a madman, sitting on his own on the side of a mountain without even a roof over his head, no food or clothing. And even when he's invited to a royal feast in the lavish palace below, he sits there thinking that he is a king when he's really a beggar. But this is just the way of things. Worldly people think Milarepa is crazy, and Milarepa thinks worldly people are crazy. He thinks they're crazy because worldly people only apply themselves to their own future suffering. All we do is create the conditions for our own experiences of suffering in the future, in our pursuit of happiness. We think we're working towards our future well-being by lining our pockets, investing in property, possessions, but all we're doing is causing the conditions for us to be dragged down to the lower realms. But we don't understand this. That's because we're not Dharma practitioners. We're worldly people. We're not Dharma practitioners because we enjoy our luxury and our comforts. We need them. We can't do without them. But for somebody like Milarepa, they see luxury to be like a poison, because it is the cause for you giving rise to attachment and desire. And it is because we are afflicted by our attachment and desire that we suffer so much in the world. Be easily satisfied and have few desires. That's what the Buddha taught. But we don't understand this. We think it's those things that we crave and the acquisition of them that makes us happy. We don't think that if we get what we want, we'll be unhappy. We think we will be happy. But it is precisely getting what we want that spoils us. Well, my time is up here. It's time to go back to Canada to look after my parents. And also to try to do what I can to remain some kind of semblance of a Dharma practitioner. Not to be dragged in to the worldly game. Not to be deceived by my mundane pursuits. If my Lama is willing, then hopefully I will be able to return here again and receive the Dharma and have the opportunity to seek instructions from my teacher. But until then, all I can do is try my best to be a good person, apply myself to virtue, be of benefit to others in whatever way I can. And I hope in some way, in some small way, I may be able to inspire others to practice, to look beyond the mundane manifestations that deceive us and draw us into conflict and unhappiness. That's a really hard thing to do. And I'm not somebody with ability. So anyway, each and every one, try your best. Don't get conned or deceived by these worldly appearances. Become self-reliant. And above all, try your best to become a good person. And if you can, also a Dharma practitioner. I'll try to send a video from Doha perhaps. You can see what the contrast is like. I mean, when I came here, I landed in Doha. It was like this sort of luxury Rolex Disneyland or something. And as soon as I landed in Kathmandu, nothing worked. The escalator didn't work, my baggage was lost. There were no glitzy shops full of Ferraris and gold watches. And here there are just poor hill farmers, old men and women, and holy men wandering around and begging. It's quite a contrast. See you later.